I am really happy to see how many people remembered to set their clocks ahead this morning. Also waiting to see how many people are going to roll at about 11:30. But thank you very much. It's my pleasure to talk about our Grace on a Mission trip. Am I doing that, Frankie? No.
Yeah, something's happening.
Okay. It's a Dominican Republic morning. The Dominican Republic, where everything almost works. We really learn on the trip to be flexible and to rely on God. We come in with our own plans, and God shows up with His better plans. We go every year to the Dominican Republic as Grace on a Missions. It really is meeting God in missions. It is the best named organization I've ever found on earth. We really do meet God, we meet Him in missions. And it is a place where we go and we have no distractions. We're really just focused on, God is focused on us, we are focused on Him and on serving Him. So it really is a very special, really special chance and real special opportunity. And it's something that's changed my life. This is the, I think, 6th time I've been down here. The people who are here who've been down more than I have. But every time it's different, and every time you go down and you think what's going to happen, and God's doing something else. So, first of all, I just wanted to. So this year, this is our team who went down this year, and I just want to thank everyone first of all, for everybody who prayed for us, who helped us, who drove us, picked us up at the airport, and everything. It was really amazing, and I particularly. Want to thank everyone who participated behind the scenes, because you were there on the trip with us. And I'm going to be asking a few people to share about their experiences here. Usually, when you go into anything in the Dominican Republic on this missions trip, you have everything planned, and it's never quite the way you think it's going to be. So this morning, I was going to ask Margaret Dish and Michelle Stutz to share. Michelle texted me this morning that her friend who was staying with her, had to go to the emergency room. So Michelle is in the emergency room with her friend. And then this morning, I had a conversation with Hazel, who's also been on the trip. And God's really put something on Hazel's heart to share this morning. So it's a little bit different, but it's going to be awesome. It's really exciting. But I just wanted to point out, on this trip, there are 9 of us who went down. But you'll see that there are 10 people in this picture. And I just want to say thank you to Sharon for what you did. Because Sharon, as you may know, her mother went to be with the Lord right before we were going. And so Sharon needed to stay here. But that didn't keep her from creating these booklets for all of us, overseeing these booklets, where she had everyone write an encouraging message each day. She oversaw that. Sorry?
And the goodie bag.
And the goodie bags that everyone had. I was getting to that. And the goodie bags, where each of us had a personalized goodie bag with candy and things to eat and snacks for the week. She oversaw getting all of the donation bags together, working with everyone. And when we left at a ridiculously early time in the morning, even though she wasn't traveling with us, she showed up with bagels and really saw us off. So we had 10 people on our trip, even though 9 of us were on our trip. So thank you. And God really did amazing things in our lives. So just quickly, the Dominican Republic, you may not know where the heck it is. If you see it on the map, you can see where we are. That blue dot is Piscataway, and here's the Dominican Republic, all the way down there, very close to Puerto Rico, and significantly warmer than it is here, particularly in January. So we're in Hato Mayor in the Dominican Republic, which is in the middle of the country. Dominican Republic is known for the beaches, which are beautiful, which are touristy, which are luxurious. We were nowhere near the beaches. We were in the middle of the country, which is the sugarcane field. So perhaps a packet of sugar that you have with your coffee today or tomorrow might have come from the Dominican Republic. So that's where we are. We are in Hato Mayor, which is about the size of Trenton, and surrounded by these small villages where many of the people are employed in cutting the sugarcane by hand in these sugarcane fields. It is very difficult work. They work 6 days a week, and they are very impoverished. But we're there to to show God's love. And there are two organizations that are there. One is Meeting God in Missions, who we work with. They're involved, they provide short-term mission opportunities, and they're focused on changing the lives of the Americans who go. So we go and we meet God in missions. Yes, we serve him. Yes, we do his work. Yes, we do what he's called us to do, and we show God's love. But also, they're really focused on us bringing that love back and bringing the lessons that we've learned back to our home churches and changing lives here as well. And to really having this personal encounter with God. And we partner with a group called Del Rey Ministries, which they work there. They are there all year round. Now, MGM is there all year round, but the missions trips are not happening all year. They tend to be more in the beginning of the year. But Del Rey is there all year. Then they're working with the local pastors. They're identifying the local leaders, helping to equip the pastors, to raise them up, and connecting with the short-term mission. So when there's a need in the village, for example, for medical care or dental care, some of the ministries that MGM supports, we go to those villages where they are working with the churches and working with the pastors. So what we have is a joined-up, year-round presence in the Dominican Republic, where we go and we serve through MGM, but we also work in the villages where the Del Rey ministry is working, planting the churches, developing the churches. So the seeds that we plant, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally, are sown and watered by the Del Rey Ministries. But it is God, as we know, who causes the growth. So we're visiting the sugarcane fields. These are some of the places where we are. So if we're in Hato Mayor, we travel out to these villages during the day and serve the people there. Show them God's love through a number of different ministries. So what are these villages like? These villages, some of you may know, some of you have been there. Incredibly, incredibly poor. It is just heartbreaking poverty. You see that greenhouse there, that little green door? That's probably just one room. And in some places you may have an entire family living in that one room. For the sugarcane cutters. The sugarcane cutters will work from dawn to dusk 6 days a week and make $3 a day. They struggle to feed their families. Life expectancy is short. The men, if you see them, somebody my age will probably look like he's 80 years old and be just broken. Their eyes are shot because they don't have sunglasses when they're working. They've got cancer, cataracts. There's just a tremendous poverty there. There's pain, there's suffering, there's a tremendous physical need. So when we go there with a medical ministry to actually set up a free clinic, the need is tremendous. Dental ministry, people have never been to dentists many times. Eyeglasses. There was so much work that we could do in such a huge need. But at the same time, we meet Christians there, believers in these villages, who, in spite of all of this, have a joy that is inexplainable. What can make somebody be so joyful in this kind of a situation? It's not clearly what they have. It's clearly not their abundance. It's clearly not their comfort. But it's who they know and the relationship they have. It's not a happiness that comes from things. It's a joy from knowing the Lord. And it is so humbling. So just what are the kind of things that we do when we go down there? What are the ministries that we do? There's the construction ministry. We're building there's a school for the deaf that's being built right next to the compound where we stay. And that school is serving a bunch of deaf students who otherwise have been kind of abandoned. If you have a disability in the Dominican Republic, you're kind of like, we don't know. We don't want to know. But they brought them in, they are teaching them, and eventually we'll be teaching them trades so they can get jobs. All to the glory of God. God is providing funding for that school. And that's something, so working on construction, the medical ministry, what I mentioned before, the dental ministry, where it's not teeth cleaning. There's a lot of extraction going on, not for the weak-hearted. Optical ministry, wonderful opportunity to have people have eye exams. They've never had eye exams, and particularly for the older people. Who they can get glasses, and particularly reading glasses. Someone thought, they thought they'd never be able to read their Bible because they didn't have glasses, and now they have reading glasses. It's just amazing blessings that can be brought here. Just the work that is fantastic. There's also, also children's ministry. Now, if you've got the mom who's working day and night, I mean, we saw the moms. They've got a little kind of like a burner out front of their house. That's where they cook, and they've got a bowl in which they make their food. Washing by hand, just backbreaking work all the time. The father's out sugarcane cutting all the time. Who takes care of these kids? The kids are starved for attention. And we go there, and the children's ministry, we are bringing God's love, but it's like Disney World to them. I mean, they just don't have this kind of love and attention. There's a sewing ministry. We're working with the women and teaching them how to sew, teaching them how to work, and then also gardening, which is a really exciting ministry because it is planting gardens to help these villages become self-sufficient. So we don't want, one of the things I love about MGM and about Del Rey is they don't want the Dominican people to be dependent on the Americans. They want them to be self-sufficient, to grow their own food, to raise up their own leaders, and to become and to really be serving God through those leaders, but also be self-sufficient with the food that they can grow and the food that they then can share. So, just a quick view of what a typical day looks like for us. We begin the day with devotions. We then have a worship service where we all get together, and there's a teaching where we go through. And this is a really, really great time where God is really speaking to us. And really, this is a way to start the day. I encourage you all to think about how you start your day. Starting your day with time with the Lord. There is nothing like it. And the time in the Dominican Republic is almost like supercharging that lesson. That's where a lot of the seeds are sown, where God does a lot of the change in our heart. We have breakfast, and then 9 a.m. we pile onto the buses and onto the trucks and head off to those villages that I showed you. And we work there, have lunch on the mission site. There'll be the ladies who in the kitchen who are amazing. They cook the food for us. We'll get up very early in the morning and make sandwiches for us. They're down there at 5 o'clock in the morning making sandwiches. And we have our sandwiches on the bus, and then we come back in the afternoon, have dinner, and then there's different evening activities. We often go out and visit local churches, worship with them, which is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So this is the infamous whiteboard. So we're in the compound. This is kind of what a typical day looks like. So it does look sort of like the D-Day logistics of things, and it really is very, very involved. So we're often having personal devotions and our group devotions, leaving for the ministries. So this group goes off to the village called Experimental, which you can imagine how organized that village was. That was fun. The sewing ministry, construction, all heading off, and then in the afternoon, all the things that are happening there. So it is a very, very full day. But the opportunities to serve are great, and you don't have to do say, okay, I'm going to do kids ministry. You're locked in. No, how God leads you, and if you even feel like the Lord wants you to stay home for a day, and just be with Him because you feel like He's really speaking to your heart, that's good as well. Because it's all about meeting God in missions. It's not serving God in missions. It's not doing work. It's not obedience, grinding it out for God in missions. It is really about meeting Him. So, I'm going to ask a couple of people to share. As I said, like in the Dominican Republic, many, many times, almost every time, we would head off and we knew exactly what we were doing. But between the time we made our plans and the time it came to actually do them, something had changed. So I got the text message this morning that Michelle, was with her friend in the hospital, and I said, it's going to be a Dominican morning. Pouring rain, oh yes, it's a Dominican morning. But God provides. Because Hazel really had something on her heart that she wanted to share. So Hazel was on a trip with me. So Hazel, would you come up, please? All right. So just wanted to ask you to share a couple things about the trip.
I did not have a touchy-feely time. I just wanted you to know that. We got there. I was excited. I went out. The locals ignored me. I was wounded because this was the first time I was going to be in a country that had more brown people than pink people. And the brown people didn't want to talk to me. So I was very upset. I went to the Lord and he said, what were you doing last year at this time? I was in rehab because I had a new knee a year ago, a year to the week. And I said, okay. So he said, why did you want to come? I said, I wanted to garden because it was January and you can't garden in New Jersey in January. So he said, garden for me. Don't garden for them, garden for me. They literally did not talk to me for the whole week. The only ones I talked to were the person I had to ride in the front of the truck. So I talked to the translator and I talked to the women whose gardens I created for them. So like the one garden was almost the size of this room, and think of it knee-deep in stuff. So we had to get rid of the stuff, break the ground, make the mounds, and in 2 days we had a garden. So he said, you're helping them, you're serving, you serve, that's what I want you to do. And I was like, okay. So I had really good prayer times, I had really good conversations with people, and I would encourage you to go. I'm probably going to go next year, again, because it's January. It's 95 there, and I'm in the garden. But I'm 60, I'm 64, I'm on disability, I have a bad leg, but I can serve the Lord. So I would say go and serve the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to call up Margaret Dish.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I have to wear my glasses, but I have so much to share, but I only know I don't have much time. But God did some amazing things in my life, and I put them down to read because I didn't want to forget anything, and this doesn't even cover everything. But I just wanted to tell you that my experience on a missions trip and what God did in my life. And to do that, I have to go back to last year's trip, when the team, which included my brother-in-law, Victor, was leaving for the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember it was dark and cold, and there I was in my comfortable bed while he was leaving his wife and daughter to serve God in another country. I wondered how he could do that. It was at that time that I felt God tugging at my heart and challenging me to get out of my comfort zone and to trust him. It was easy to say yes at that time because the trip was a whole year away. Yet as the time got closer to commit to going, my flesh got in the way. In October, Jeff contacted my husband and asked if we were attending. And I told my husband, tell Jeff, no way, I am not going. A few short weeks later, Carlos, my dear friend from Texas and former Grace member, called me all excited because he had just booked his tickets to the DR and was looking forward to seeing me, and serving with us again. I told Carlos very gently that I wasn't going. I was too scared to fly. I was afraid of the germs and the bugs, and I just couldn't do it. Carlos told me to pray about it. I said, okay, but I'm still not going. A week later, Michelle Stutz was in church sitting right behind me. After service, we began talking, and somehow the DR trip came up. She said that she would go on the trip if I went. At that point, I knew that God was speaking to my heart, and that he was calling me, as scared as I was, to get out of my comfort zone, to trust him with my life, and and to go wherever he's called me to go. My life changed after I made that decision, and I hadn't even gone on the trip yet. I struggled with my fear for several months, asking God to take it away. I had anxiety attacks as I imagined myself getting on the plane, and I struggled with the fear of getting sick or some disease, or even worse, being held as a hostage in another country and never seeing my family again. I prayed daily, and I shared my fears with so many of you, and I asked you all to please pray for me. As the weeks went by, I felt more peaceful, and although I still had fear, it wasn't defining me or my life. I was starting to look forward to some of the things that I heard from others who went in previous years, like worshiping the Lord through devotions every morning, serving with other believers, and growing closer to the Lord. When I arrived in the DR, I didn't know what to expect. I was just happy that I survived the plane ride. I felt bad for Michelle and Victor because they had to endure me holding on to their hands for dear life to the point that they couldn't move their thumbs. And poor Jeff had to hear me sing, and those of you that know I can't sing. The flight back, that's how I got through that. But the first couple of days I was in shock and disbelief of how people lived. The poverty was overwhelming. There were times I felt if I was on a movie set and what I saw was just props. I couldn't believe that this was real. The homes were so bad that we wouldn't even let our pets live in one. There was dirt and garbage everywhere, and the smell of garbage being burned was a daily experience. But then there were the people. I experienced kids in the village happily running to where we were to participate in Vacation Bible School. I experienced kids just happy to arm wrestle with me, play duck, duck, goose, and be content with just to brush Michelle's hair. I was able to walk through the village and pray for people. I met a young man named Caesar, who I was able to share my testimony with. And I had the privilege of leading a 15-year-old girl who just found out she was pregnant to Christ. I had the opportunity to pray with a Christian woman who wanted God to bring a godly man into her life. She was so thankful for those prayers and only wished that I could be present when God answered that prayer. God used the morning devotionals to speak to my heart and to energize me. Every time I felt like I missed home, God did something amazing that brought at that moment to give me the strength and endurance for another day. During the times back at our compound, I met the most amazing, godly people. I felt as if I had made it to the big leagues in the Christian life. Their love for God and their love for the Dominican people was contagious. I bonded with the interpreters that were assigned to us, and I met amazing people from a church in Binghamton, New York, where my in-laws reside. I came back reaffirming that my God is trustworthy, that when we are called to do something, even though we're afraid, God will give us the strength and courage to do it. God wants us to experience so much more than just coming to church on Sunday. I am so thankful for my husband, my brother-in-law, and my sister, who saw how hard this was for me, but never talked me out of going. You see, not going was never a choice. I am also thankful for the prayers and support of my church family. And I just encourage you all that if God is calling you to move, to grow in your faith, and to serve others, then you should attend Meeting God in Missions. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you so much.
I just wanted, I really just wanted to say to Margaret, you're one of the most courageous people I've ever met. Because we read about, where God says, be courageous. He tells Joshua, do not fear, be courageous. Be strong and courageous. The definition of courage has nothing to do with a lack of fear. Courage is what you do in the face of fear. And I know that Margaret had a lot of fears, but she learned very much that her God is bigger. And thank you for that so much. Thank you. You are the most courageous person I know. So on this trip, the Lord really put a verse on my heart that I think is really, for me, was the theme of this whole trip. This comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 9. It says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And I think there are a lot of themes here, but for me, the two themes that really stood out were, you look at the themes here, you're talking about teaching, or proclaiming the good news, healing diseases, all of these things that we do. But there are two things that stood out to me. One was the word disciple, and the second was prayer, pray. Really interesting, I thought. So what is a disciple? A disciple is someone who believes in the ideas of another person and tries to live like they did, or like they do. So it's a student, a follower, someone who follows. And so Jesus' disciples were followers. They wanted to be like him. They wanted to be where he was, do what he did, learn what he was doing. But it's interesting, if we look in the Bible, the word Christian, we say we're all Christians, and people say they're Christian. The word Christian is in the Bible a total of 3 times. The word disciple is in the Bible a total of 296 times. So I think it's probably good for us to consider ourselves to be disciples rather than Christians. I mean, yes, we're Christians, but what does that mean? It means to be a disciple. It means to be a follower of Jesus, a student of Jesus, to be where he is and to do what he does. So why did Jesus say to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few? Why did he say that to his disciples? There's a real simple reason, and that's because his disciples were right there. They were physically right there. Because if you want to say something, you say it to the person who's right there. They were right there to hear what he had to say. So the question for us is, as disciples, where are we? Where are we? Are we where Jesus is? Are we in a place where we're listening to his voice and hearing his voice? We really heard of it. What Hazel shared, what Margaret shared, they were in a place where they heard God really leading them to go on this trip and to obey. And in that, they were blessed through serving him. So God wants to, what does Jesus want us to know? He wants us to know his heart, and he wants us to understand where people really are. And this is really something that really came home to me. So Jesus, his heart for the people, if you look at this, the first verse, that he went through all the towns and villages. We went through lots of villages when we were in the Dominican Republic. And teaching in the synagogues. Well, we didn't go in not many synagogues in the Dominican Republic, I don't think. But we went into their churches. We did the vacation Bible school. We were teaching. We were helping out. We were proclaiming the good news through the prayer and evangelism, where we saw people coming to the Lord and giving their faith and hearing the good news, which is really, really exciting. And we were healing diseases and illnesses. We were treating through the dental ministry, through the eyeglasses, through the medical ministry. We were doing all of those things. But yet, that's not the purpose. That's not why we were there. I think the reason is in the next verse, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Compassion. Where's our heart? Where is our heart for people? And when we were in the Dominican Republic, we knew why we were there. We were there to serve the Dominicans. We were missionaries, right? You know, meeting God in missions. So that makes me a missionary, so I'm a missionary and I'm going to go out. So I was focused on task. But when I came back, I'm taking the PAC train, okay? And I'm surrounded by people, and I don't have compassion on them. I don't. When I'm driving and that guy cuts me off, I don't have compassion on him. You know, we have, you know, what's different? Nothing's different. Was God with me in the Dominican Republic? Absolutely. Is God with me in New Jersey? Absolutely. So what's different? My heart's in the wrong place. My heart's in the wrong place. Jesus was showing his disciples his heart by demonstrating his love with them. What's God doing around you? What's God doing through this church? What's God doing in our communities? Do you want to be a part of that? Where is God? What is God doing? Let him show you his heart. The other thing that Jesus was showing is his eyes for people. As he saw the crowds, he had compassion, and they were harassed and helpless. And we saw the people in the Dominican Republic, harassed and helpless, exploited by the guys who run the sugarcane fields, those big owners. They're just taking terrible advantage of those poor Haitian immigrants. People who, imagine, working for $3 a day in the Dominican Republic is better than being in Haiti. Imagine what life in Haiti must be like, if that's better. They don't have papers. They're trapped. They're not viewed as citizens. It's a very complicated story, but they're second-class citizens, persecuted, harassed, and helpless. But, you know, who are they harassed by? You know, they're harassed by the devil. They're harassed. There is, you know, satanic worship happening there. Witch doctors. You know, this is not all something like Bugs Bunny with, you know, the little devil with the red horns and the... No. Satan is real. You see it in the Dominican Republic. And we're seeing it in New Jersey as well, to be honest. We are. There is incredible evil in the world. But you see it in the Dominican Republic. There in the villages where people are really oppressed. And you have the world telling them, you know, oh, these people are rich, but I'm poor. And they feel helpless. What can they do? What hope is there for them? That's no different than where we are here. That's no different than where we are here. You look around at the people around us, our neighbors, our co-workers, everyone. They're harassed as well. They're harassed. The world is telling them they don't measure up. They're not good enough. You need to have this to be happy. Oh, you need to worry about this. Oh, look at, you know, this, you need to be stressed out about this. Turn on the TV and you're worried about that. You're just being harassed. Being harassed by the sin in their own life. They're falling short again and again. I can never change. They never, you know, things happen in their life. They'll never measure up. It's not just in the Dominican Republic. It's everyone around us. Do we have the eyes to see those people like Jesus is telling his disciples? We can see that in the Dominican Republic, but when we come back, do we see it in our neighbors and our friends and in our world too? It's the same world. So when he said that they're like sheep without a shepherd, what do? I'll follow this. I'll do this. The answer is money. The answer is being in this club. The answer is I need a new cell phone. I don't know. Just kidding. But all of those things are not going to help them. Because why? They're like sheep. Sheep are the stupidest animals in the world. Without a leader, they are helpless. But they need a shepherd. And if you know Jesus, you know the Good Shepherd. You know him. You know that he offers hope. You know the hope that he has. And this is the hope of the world. And this is what we were in the Dominican Republic to share as missionaries. But this is what we can share here in New Jersey as well. And this is what really God was just really putting onto my heart. Because it really is. It's his harvest. And his work. And then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. Okay, boys, get busy. No, he didn't say anything like that. He said, pray. He said, wait a second. If there's a lot of work to do, I just have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this. And you can be in the Dominican Republic go on this trip for all the wrong reasons. And I think that, you can serve. You say, I'm going to serve. I'm going to meet God. I'm going to serve God in missions. That's the purpose of this trip. No, it's meeting God in missions. And what is it that God is putting on your heart? What is it that God wants you to do? That's really the question. And how do we know what God's putting on your heart? That's why Jesus said to pray. Don't just get busy. And you can serve. And I can tell you myself, I could serve for lots of wrong reasons. I would go out and doing the prayer and evangelism and saying, okay, we're going to see results today. And I had to say, no. Why am I there? He's the Lord of the harvest. He's going to bring results. And the idea is not to lead someone to Christ. That's amazing if that happens. And it did. And it did. We had a friend of ours one of the guys got invited into a church, or got invited to a school. And he had a chance to talk to all of the teachers and all of the students. So imagine going out, and he shared the good news with them. And there were 5 teachers, principal, 5 teachers, and 50 students. All five teachers gave their hearts to the Lord that day, and 30 students. So God had prepared that. But that's not what it's about. It's about the compassion. It's really about having the service in the heart for the people, not the duty. You've got to do it for the right reasons. It is His harvest and His work. So when we were walking out, I'll end with this. When we leave the mission compound, above the door is this map. And a reminder to us, because you are now entering the mission field. So that's why we were there. We had a sense of purpose, right? We knew that we were going out to do these things that the Lord had called us to do. And we knew that He was with us. And we had a real sense of His love for the people. That's why we were there. And we had a sense of His compassion. We were beginning to see Him through prayer, to see them through prayer, the way that God sees us, the way that God sees them, being transformed and going out there. But He is the Lord of the harvest, and it is His field. So I would encourage you to picture above our door, what about us? You are now entering the mission field. We go to the Dominican Republic as missions. We are missionaries. Before we got on that plane, we were missionaries. When we were there, we were missionaries. When we're here, we are missionaries. This is the harvest field, New Jersey. May we have the compassion that Jesus has. May we have the heart that He has. May we have the eyes to see these people, not as I see them on the PATH train, as, oh, would you move over, please? Please shut up. But to have that heart. And that's not going to come from me improving myself. That's why He says to pray. Lord, pray. There's such a need. There's such a need. Please send. Please send. And maybe God will say, I want you to go. And then what you do next tells God what you really think of Him. So I just really encourage you to really think of that and really consider that, maybe meeting God in missions is just a start. It's a great opportunity. If you have a chance to go, I'd really consider you to pray about it. We have these brochures on the back table if you want more information. But I just want to remind you right now, you're already a missionary. Let's pray.